Hi, everyone. I'm Ivan Buyuki, and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Our guest today is our good friend and a man who needs no introduction, the legend, David Morgan from the Morgan Report. David, it's great to see you.
Ivan, it's good to see you. Thank you.
So, Mr. Silver Guru, um, silver's going nuts. So let me show Russia has invaded Ukraine. We've kicked Russia off of SWIFT, or they're in the process of doing so. They've even taken away Vladimir Putin's Taekwondo black belt today, I read. It was officially revoked by the international, whoever controls taking away black belts for Taekwondo. So is that the spike? Is that the catalyst for silver going crazy?
Well, certainly it's one of them. What's interesting, Jim, is that silver is the most up percentage-wise of all the precious metals. It's up a higher percentage than gold, platinum, or palladium. Palladium has been the best performer from the beginning of the year so far.
Yeah, palladium is up 3% today, and silver's up, almost 4%. So good point.
Yeah. Whenever silver leads like that, that's usually a pretty strong indicator that we're going to be on our way. Not every time. I hate to give people false hope. It's a breakout, not a fake out. We had on the candles, we had this huge candle and we got whacked down, and then we're right back up to where we were, which shows resilience in the market. If it was a weak market, it'd be going the other direction. It's not.
And well, here's what you were just saying. This is these 1 day candles. This one right here was the invasion day, where you saw. Remember that day a couple days ago before the weekend. It went crazy high to 2560. Then they brought it all the way back down the same day on invasion day, and all the way back into the 23 handle. And ever since then, it's almost back to those highs.
Right. Yeah, I think we get some follow through in the next couple of days. We could see a new platform for silver back up in the, I don't know, particular number, 2750, 28. Kind of when Wall Street Silver really got its bit in the mouth and started to become really well known amongst the average investor out there. I mean, you guys started quite a movement, and I think, you're forest for the trees. I'm sure you're aware of it, but I'm not as sure that you're as aware of it as it's going to be seen going backwards in history. In other words, when silver really starts to move, the historians are going to look back and say, what happened? And they're going to say Wall Street Silver happened.
That's we're the next Hunt brothers, right? Yeah, we're going to get all the blame.
In a way, the beauty about silver is there's a natural corner. People talk about cornering the market or squeezing the market or taking control of the market. But silver is a natural corner because 50% of the market is required by industry. They don't have a substitute. It's essential. It's critical. It's unsubstitutable. You have to have it. You don't get a choice.
So oil, it's really surging dramatically. We've been playing around. It was already up into the high 80s, low 90s even before the invasion. But the invasion of Ukraine, and now all the banks cutting off SWIFT, oil's now spiked up to well above 106 this week already. And a lot of people aren't realizing how much oil Russia actually exports. And that's a key thing now. If we cut them off of SWIFT and we're not paying them, or if we don't have the ability to pay them in dollars or euros because we're kicking them off of SWIFT, what's their incentive to keep sending commodities to the West?
None. There isn't any. Well, throw me in the briar patch, as the old thing goes, probably a metaphor you guys don't even know. But the idea is it's backfiring in a way, because what are the two most cherished commodities in a crisis situation? It's oil and gold. And on a per capita basis, Russia has a great quantity of gold per capita and oil per capita. So, hurt me, the price just going up in both of those commodities. The other part is it doesn't have to be settled with SWIFT, which we talked about offline a little bit. I mean, basically, SWIFT is a very convenient payment system. But, Jim, you can finally send me that hat. I just haven't sent you that ounce of silver for it yet. But I could do that by email. All I have to do is say, Jim, give me your address, and I'm going to insure this thing. I'm going to send it to that address. And when you get it, you send me your hat. And that's how it works. So you could do it by a phone call. You could do it by text. You could do it by email. You could do it by letter. There's a lot of ways to settle. But on top of that, there is a system that's similar to SWIFT called SIPS from China. And it's already done a good job and could, I don't know if circumvent is the right word, but it's certainly a payment system that's in competition with the SWIFT system.
Yeah, so I looked this up in the past couple of days to figure out, because I've read about this over the years that China and Russia or China was building an alternative to SWIFT. And it's actually already set up in China. A lot of Chinese banks have this SIPS it's an alternative for SWIFT, which is controlled by the Western powers. And there are banks in Russia that are already on the system. There are banks in India already on the system. And there are several banks in Europe also on the system. So if Russia is removed from SWIFT and you can't pay Russia in dollars or euros, let's face it, China's the manufacturing powerhouse of the world, along with several other Asian countries. Russia can buy whatever they want from China. They've got the natural gas, they've got the oil, they have the other hard commodities. China's not going to say no to doing business with Russia, right?
Right. I think if I could go a step further, your thinking's very clear. I'd like to break it down even further, which means let's not think about currency for a minute. Let's just think about barter. What do you want to barter for? Well, there's nothing more powerful than energy, and Russia's got an abundance of it. So if China's going to put their allegiance to somebody, they're going to do it to a neighbor that has abundant of everything that they need to continue to feed their people, manufacture goods, and everything else. So, as I said, I think this could backfire on the Anglo-American empire that controls the banking system. And, it's my take, and I'll be writing about this in the next issue, which goes out this weekend, about what's really going on with Ukraine. And there's lots of stories, and I'm not going to tell you I know the exact one. But I know from all the work I've done for decades, it's follow the money. And if you're following the money, you're looking at, well, who's getting bought off in Ukraine? Well, let's see. Nancy Pelosi's got a relative that's gotten a contract with the gas company. Then there's Hunter Biden. And then there's Kerry's son. And there's one other one. I mean, the politicians. And then the Clinton Foundation. One of the biggest contributors was Ukraine. What the heck's going on? There's a lot more to the story than just Russia, Russia, let me tell you.
Well, I mean, no one's trying to argue here that Russia's in the right, and no one's. I'm certainly not at all. All I'm trying to highlight here is the reality that Russia exports a huge percentage of the commodities that the world desperate. There's no replacement for this amount of natural gas that's being exported. It's not like they can say, "Oh, we'll just go get more from Iran, or Qatar, or some of the other exporters who have LNG."
Or, well, I like to, sorry to interrupt, I have to say it, Jim. Oh, we'll switch to solar. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. I mean, natural gas is the natural gas power plants for electricity. Something like 30 or 35 or 40% of the electric grid in Europe, and half of the natural gas. So several of those countries in Europe, natural gas is half of their electric grid, or half. Russia is the source for almost 50% of their electricity through natural gas. If they were to cut off the natural gas, the electric grid they start having rolling blackouts in several countries within several weeks if Putin were to flip the switch. And, we keep dialing up the pressure on Putin with more and more sanctions. We're seizing the boats for all the Russian oligarchs wherever we can find them around the world right now. They're freezing bank accounts. I think France even announced not just freezing them, but seizing them, as in we're not giving it back. And I just ask myself, if you keep backing a nuclear power into a corner, Russia has nuclear weapons. If you take everything and back the bear into the corner, what else does he have to lose at that point? Nothing, right?
Right.
Or am I just talking great Am I crazy talk, David?
No, you're spot on. I'm glad you said it, not me. Then I don't get as many negative comments. But as Gerald Salente says, when you have
Well, I'm
nothing
used
to
to it in
lose,
my comments.
as Gerald Salente says, when you have nothing to lose, you lose it. I mean, Putin has had a very measured stance for years. I mean, he kept talking at the UN and other forums where the G7, G20, and all these, saying, get off my borders, quit pressuring me. You guys are going to have to back off. Well, obviously, this has hit the tipping point. He's, in Ukraine in whatever manner the truth is. I don't know. I'm suspicious of some of the things I see on the mainstream. But regardless, there is an event. It's obvious. And what happens next is, as you outlined, Jim, could be scary because I don't want to project, but as you outlined so succinctly, you keep putting more and more pressure, there is a potential that you could get in a situation you wish you hadn't.
Well, the other key thing I think is, you think gold and to a lesser extent silver are starting to sniff out a Fed pivot here? I mean, the past couple of months, the whole narrative has been that they're going to be raising rates, and between 4 times and 9 times in the next year. And with everything going on, markets down, hundreds of points, over thousands of points collectively in the past week. Do you really see a scenario where they can raise rates 9 times this year?
I do not. I think you called it again, Jim. I'll give you credit. I mean, it's the pivot. It's like, they might even lie, or misrepresent their intent that they are going to still raise interest rates. And maybe they will. Maybe they do 25 basis points, maybe 50. It's a spit in the ocean. It's not going to help anything. They are in a bind that they can't get out of. We've talked about this in the past. They cannot raise interest rates sufficiently high enough to do anything other than wreck the economy. I mean, they can't really raise them high enough to do any meaningful good. And to think about, changing their balance sheet and being able to sell some of this toxic waste that they put on their balance sheet because no other bank wanted to own it. I mean, that speaks volumes in and of itself. If you got a bunch of dog doo-doo for sale, how much do you get it, especially when times are tough? You get dog doo-doo -1. I mean, you're not going to get a good price for it. Yes, you can play with the treasuries, which they do constantly, but that's kind of the vestige of last hope, because when you use faith in whatever the U.S. is producing, then you start to question, if you don't want to hold a dollar for a couple of months because of what food and gas is doing, why would you want to hold it for 6 months or 2 years or 10 years or 30 years? So the bond market has always been the key. And we see, one of the stalwarts, JPM, is doing a nosedive today. So I think he really nailed the head of this thing, Jim. You've seen what we've seen in silver, forecasting more ahead. We've seen gold and oil that Russia owns. And we've seen that some of these institutions that so many have blind faith in are starting to show their true colors.
Yeah, JP Morgan's down big. Let me just share that chart real quick because I have it here. But yeah, it's fallen off a cliff. Now, why is that? I don't, it's not because they're short silver. I think that's a rounding error.
Yeah.
Their total balance sheet.
Right.
But
no, it's faith. It's confidence. Is my credit
counterparty? Is this maybe counterparty risk? I
exactly.
mean, unknown exposure to Russia?
Yeah. They've got a lot with China. And they have with Russia. So, as you said, and you made the point, and I'll make it stronger. China is really the number one producer in the world. You can argue the U.S. is, and I won't debate it. But without China providing what the world needs, pharmaceuticals and all the stuff they ship to Walmart, the world is in a painful situation. So JP Morgan's got to walk a tightrope between being an Anglo-American empire tool, a very important one, but still a tool, and not upsetting one of their main business associates, the Chinese.
Understood. Well, Mr. Morgan, thank you for giving us a bit of your time today. We really appreciate it. Audience loves you, and we'll do it again soon.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ivan.
Take care, David.
Bye-bye.